thank you very much for agreeing to be here today, joining our Great Mind series. Very pleased to see you here in London.
Thank you.
I just wondered if we could start this interview. Could you give us an overview of Northern Trust, your role, and explain about your business?
Sure. Northern Trust is a Chicago headquartered organisation, global financial services, and we specialise in three things, and we do those three things very well. First one is asset servicing, so that's the safe custody of assets, pricing, valuation and reporting. Second aspect of our business is wealth management, so as the name implies, we look after the assets of the rich and famous. And then thirdly, we're an asset manager, so again we look after the assets for institutional clients, individuals, across multiple markets around the world. My role within the organisation is the Chief Executive Officer of our asset management division outside of the US. So I look after all of our non-US clients, both in EMEA and APAC. As a company, we're looking after approximately $924 billion worth of assets under management, so that's client assets, and we safe custody over $5 trillion of assets. We have over 15,000 employees, over 20 countries, and we have clients in over 40 markets around the world. So we're currently celebrating our 125th anniversary, so we're very pleased and very proud to be part of Northern Trust.
Now, like education, financial services is heavily regulated. I wonder, does that cause challenges for you?
It does cause challenge across the world, especially if you're in different geographies. But again, I think in terms of what the market experienced, what clients experienced, and also what organisations experienced in the last 10 years in particular, you can definitely see the need and requirement for regulation. I think the challenge the industry has, and people that are looking to go into the industry have, is one to understand the types of regulatory environments that exist, both from a country or from a market perspective. And invariably, you do get some difference of not only opinion but timing of new regulations as well.
And to what extent does innovation play a major part in your business? Do you encourage employees to innovate regularly, daily?
Sure. Well, I think one of the key aspects of working for Northern Trust and the way that we develop our client relationships is that we listen. And we listen very carefully to what our clients want. So the innovation process is built around client needs versus us kind of clocking ourselves into a black box and coming up with the best next thing. We absolutely do innovate, and we are market leaders in a number of different areas, especially with regard to asset management. But it's based on having very strong relationships with asset owners around the world, and for us to collectively bring those views together to create the innovation process.
Now, Northern Trust, you were talking about the number of employees you have in your business. You'll have some incredibly bright employees. What sort of education background do you seek, and what role do you see educators playing in helping build your business?
Well, firstly, again, I think we value absolutely diversity and inclusion. So that by itself means that we want to cast the net far and wide. So we certainly don't want to be looking at a certain type of individual from a certain type of school with a certain type of education background. So we're very pleased, very proud of the breadth of talent that we have within the organisation. So from our perspective, a sharp, keen mind, a desire to learn is always one of the key attributes that we look for in talent. Obviously and invariably someone that has gone through an educational system, both more traditional but perhaps non-traditional as well. So coming through a mature graduate scheme, or actually doing work themselves, so whether that's an IMC or a CFA type degree and further education, really demonstrates not only their enthusiasm for the industry but the commitment for continued learning.
Technology and e-learning are increasingly important to businesses. Do you see that being a benefit to your staff or to people looking to join your business? Yeah,
definitely. And I think what we're seeing more and more now is the ability to ensure that that we as an industry keep up with technology. So, and part of that is definitely on the delivery of new information, but also reinforcing a concept or a policy in particular. So we heavily rely on the e-learning model capabilities, whether that's language, whether that's diversity and cultural understanding for our staff that are moving from one country to another, whether that's a very specific technical subject as well, so it could be anti-money laundering or know your client procedures, the ability to use that and deliver that information through an e-learning platform where not only you can ensure that there is a very consistent way of delivering the message, but also the ability to ensure that staff and partners are going through that process as well at an appropriate level, and then being able to embed tests and quizzes as part of it to raise the awareness and actually see the results of some of the e-learning modules is very important.
That's very interesting. That's quite an advanced way of looking at it. With regard to people joining your business, so graduates, how much emphasis do you put on qualifications such as CFA or ACCA? Is that important to you?
It is important, but I think more so it's looking at the broader skill that an individual has or has the potential to gain as well. So again, the ability to demonstrate high levels of common sense, of cultural awareness. Diversity inclusion is one that we look at carefully as well. So their background, where have they come from, what have they experienced, and what are they looking to experience going forward. So it's not just around the educational qualifications that an individual has. Industry experience is very important for us as well, and again that can be obtained at every age, whether it's work experience, whether it's an intern program, or whether it's a period of secondment as part of a university program within industry and within business. And we find that you can see that the differences in a candidate that has exposed themselves to the workplace ahead of actually looking for a full-time job as well.
So as a leader, what sort of values would you encourage within your business?
Well, one of the several values that we like, obviously in terms of the ability to be honest and transparent is key. And that obviously demands some level of courage because, again, especially if you're new into the workplace, your ability to raise your hand and express an opinion, or your ability to raise your hand and think, I think something's gone wrong here, and can you help me, is key for an individual. So there's an element of personal courage as well that we look for, and individuals to have the confidence to stand on their own 2 feet and represent themselves as well as their team and what they're doing for the organisation. So really trying to identify and triangulate not only the academic background and the experience that they've had, the commercial awareness and acumen that we would hope individuals can gather and gain before they join the workplace, but also some of the softer skills as well. Communication is one, appearance, presentation manner is another, and their ability to understand, and to call out those times when they may feel quite uncomfortable and say, I need some help, or why do we do that? That's the personal courage element that comes through. Now,
there'll be a lot of people watching this video and they'll be thinking, and they'll be getting quite excited about Northern Trust. They'll also be thinking, what sort of a leader are you?
From a leadership perspective, you evolve, and I'd like to think that I certainly lead from the front, whilst also supporting the team from behind. So that is kind of a unique skill set, I suppose, in terms of the type of job and role that I have, which tends to be very market focused and market facing, which we have no control about. The investment markets move as they do, so the ability to be able to manage the teams in sometimes highly stressful, highly volatile periods of market moves, whilst also ensuring that not only they've got the confidence and the commitment from the management team and us as leaders, but also the ability to give clients sometimes quite a difficult message in terms of, this has happened, the market has dropped, it hasn't achieved its aims as we would have expected, etc. So that communication from a client perspective is also important, the level of transparency, level of confidence that you're able to deliver, and the ability, I think, from a leadership perspective to build deep relationships both internally and externally is very important, and that happens over time, but the level of trust, the level of awareness that you have over a situation, but also the ability to read people and understand what makes them tick is important as well. So having an ability to understand, and my team are in many different countries around the world, that there are differences in the way that you approach an issue, that you try to solve a solution, whether it's the team in Tokyo or the team in Hong Kong or the team in Australia versus the team in the Netherlands or Stockholm.
And just thinking about it, if people were looking to be a successful entrepreneur in business, in finance, what sort of advice could you give them there, or what sort of skill set do you think they should try to acquire?
Well, one is, I think there's no silver bullet, there's no easy quick pass for success. There's a lot of hard work involved, and I came up through the trading background, the fund management background, so I've always managed money in my career, and it's very similar in terms of what makes a successful fund manager or trader versus a non-successful fund manager or trader. And I think part of that is the research that you have and you have to do when you're involved in the markets is intensive, and you end up absorbing an awful amount of information. Quite rightly or wrongly, it's not all right, it's not all giving you the way to progress. You want to listen to and understand the reverse of your view, the contrarian angle there, because that forms your view in terms of the commitment level you have to a trade. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think, there's a couple of aspects there. One is, make sure that you're doing as much due diligence and research on your area of interest, and then look for and try to gain views or people that can challenge that, because that's your risk case that you want to say, what if that happens? So, with an entrepreneurial or business mindset, you can be very narrowly focused, which is great, it's what you need, but you also need to identify the risks to that view. So going back to the trading and fund management side, what you tend to find is that you're spending 90% of your time researching, reading, trying to obtain views that are contrary or challenge how you feel and your view of something. The other 5% is really kind of the risk side. Okay, so how much risk am I prepared, based on all of the research that I've taken, from an execution perspective? So when is the right time to pull that trigger? And again, that's part of the research process. So all of that time and effort in terms of, the timing. Is it a good time? Is it a bad time? Is there a better time to, put the energy, the money, the commitment into a trade or a position? And then 5% is really down, to the human brain, and it's a fantastic computer, which sometimes we perhaps don't allow, the latitude it deserves, and trusting your experience, trusting your education, and trusting the awareness, but also the aggregation of all of that flow of information to actually pull the trigger and do the trade.
You make it sound very easy, Wayne, but I'm sure there's an awful lot behind it. If you were giving a young person, a student, some advice for the future, what would be the single most important piece of advice you could give them? I
think don't constrain yourself. You really can do anything and be anyone, and that's been proven time and time again. And I think one of the aspects of whether it's the workplace, the education system, is you can find individuals self-constraining, and don't self-constrain. So if you want to be a graphical illustrator, if you want to write movies for Hollywood, pursue the dream. And it's amazing what you find along that journey to pursue the dream, and what you end up doing trying to pursue the dream as well. So, and if you're constraining yourselves at a very early stage, both from an education in terms of subject choice, when you're starting work and you're earning money, and that's forcing a constraint on you, it can be a shame, because it's closing doors for future career development and future personal growth. So I suppose it would be to challenge self-constraint would be the advice I'd give.
Wayne Bowers, CEO of Northern Trust Asset Management, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, thank you.